It began with an enigmatic poster appearing overnight, nailed to lampposts and plastered on every street corner. The image was hauntingly beautiful, a crimson tent draped in shadows with silvered edges that seemed to glint under the moonlight. It promised an experience like no other, the Eternal Reverie Circus, where dreams and nightmares collide. By dusk, the atmosphere in the neighborhood was electric with curiosity and unease. People whispered about the mysterious arrival of the circus, each of their conversations marked by an inexplicable shiver of apprehension. The tent, erected on the outskirts of town, was an imposing structure with dark red and black stripes. Its entrance, a black void fringed with golden tassels that fluttered in the night breeze. Jonathan and Natalie entered the premises of the circus together with the other patrons. They saw a strong man, a juggler and a jester, until finally they reached the entrance of the main tent, and adjacent to it there was a haunted house show. Jonathan invited Natalie to join him in the haunted house, but she wanted to see the exhibitions in the main tent. She was too scared of horror shows, so he told her to save him a seat and he would join her as soon as he was done, and they went their separate ways. Natalie entered the main tent that revealed a world that defied explanation. The interior was a vast, cavernous space, illuminated by eerie, flickering lights. Spectators stepped in, drawn by a compulsion they couldn't quite explain. Once inside, the air was thick with a heady perfume that weaved around their senses. The music was a haunting melody played on instruments that surely belonged to another era. Jonathan walked inside the haunted house. Animatronics of ghosts and recorded ghost moans played inside. Fake spider webs decorated the place. He made a turn and saw a cage with a sign that read, "The Unfathomable Wolfman." And inside there was a man in the best wolfman makeup he had ever seen. It was too real. The creature walked from side to side, growling with snarling teeth under a pair of crimson, luminous eyes. Inside the tent, Natalie couldn't believe her eyes. The performers were unlike anything she had seen before. Acrobats with skin that shimmered like opals, with graceful yet disjointed movements, as if time itself bent around them. Clowns with painted faces that seemed to move independently of their expressions, their laughter echoing unsettlingly in the space all around the audience. The animals, if they could be called that, were hybrids of beast and myth. Their eyes gleamed with an intelligence that sent shivers down the spines of anyone who glanced at them. Jonathan made another turn into a T-shaped corridor, and from the opposite side of him, the door banged open and a man wearing jeans overalls and a mask came out raging with a chainsaw that roared in the air, screeching against the metal wall as it spilled numerous sparks in the air in a terrorizing display of madness. Jonathan felt real fear and ran into the long corridor adjacent to the one he was in, and at the end he found a red door that he banged close as soon as he crossed it. In the main tent, as the show progressed, the audience was vibrant with excitement as though they were under a spell. The climax of the performance was celebrated with applause from the roaring crowd. The ringmaster, clad in an elaborate costume of crimson and gold, stepped into the center of the ring. His eyes were pools of deep black, reflecting a cruel delight. With a dramatic flourish, he announced the grand finale, a dance of shadows. In the haunted house, Jonathan was walking over a rope bridge that crossed the top of a pool of murky green water. He could not see what was inside of it, but spiky fins protruded above water, drawing a circle in the ghastly pool. Only the sounds of his heart still beating hard from the last room, and the drippings of water could be heard. As he crossed, a burst of water revealed an animatronic of a crocodile covered in weeds, with crimson eyes blinking. His heart almost came out of his mouth as he ran over the rope bridge. When he reached the end, at the side there was another cage with a sign that read, "Dagon, the monstrous creatures of the blood lagoon," and inside there was a creature that was a mixture of man and fish, covered in black scales, munching on a chicken inside of a pool. The creature growled as he watched Jonathan pass to the next room with a pair of bulbous black eyes and bristling gills. The main tent was plunged into darkness, save for a single spotlight that illuminated the ringmaster. A group of women took center stage, poi dancing and fire spinning to the rhythm of tribal drums. The shadows cast by the fire dancing seemed to come alive, stretching as though they were trying to escape from their own darkness. The audience watched, mesmerized, as the shadows began to creep closer, as the dancing reached its climax, their shapes forming into nightmarish figures that reached out with claw-like appendages. Jonathan finally reached a room marked by an exit sign pointing to a curve in the corridor. This was probably the most impressive haunted house he had ever visited, but he was glad it was coming to an end. He followed the curve and found himself in a room with a mirror, and behind it there was a door with the exit sign. The strange thing was that instead of reflecting Jonathan, the mirror reflected a clown with red hair, red jacket and boots. The clown was perfectly mimicking Jonathan's movements, as if he was its true reflection. Jonathan looked around, realizing he was alone, yet the clown continued to mimic his every move and expression. In the main tent, the public stood in awe by the mesmerizing effects of the dancing. Gasps erupted as the audience grew ever more enchanted by the performance. The shadows, now fully formed entities, danced independent of the women. Their whispers filled the air, promises of eternal delight, of a never-ending night. Jonathan approached the mirror and touched, his index finger connecting with the clown's. Suddenly, the clown winked at him, finally breaking character, and Jonathan took a step back, bumping into someone. As he turned, he saw the clown's red eyes luminous in the dark, and his mouth open with a pair of fangs salivating.
Peekaboo, I see you.
Were the last words Jonathan heard after he was bitten savagely in the neck, and everything went dark. In the midst of the chaos of the ending of the show, Natalie finally noticed something that made her skin crawl. Jonathan never showed up for the performance. As she looked everywhere for him, she felt a cold, suffocating sensation enveloping her. Her heart beat fast as the ever-growing sensation that something was horrifically wrong. Desperation drove Natalie to look everywhere for him, asking for any sign of him. In her frantic search, she ended up in the backstage of the circus, and there, inside a tent partially obscured by heavy drapes, she pushed through looking for her boyfriend, finding herself in a small room, barely illuminated by a single flickering candle. Natalie's breath came in ragged gasps as she adjusted her eyes to the dim light. Her heart pounded loudly in her chest, the shadows of the circus tent still in her thoughts. She began to make out the figures of two men standing in the far corner, their voices low and murmured, but clear enough to catch snippets of their conversation.
I received your letter. The circus is in town for a damn good show.
Natalie's curiosity overcame her fear, and she edged closer, trying to listen without being noticed. The men spoke of something that sounded like a grand plan. The name Dreadford echoed ominously in her mind. As a resident of the city, she knew it had its share of dark legends, but she had never imagined anything like this. Natalie's pulse quickened. The men's words suggested that something sinister was about to unfold in her own city. She decided to take a risk. Moving as quietly as possible, Natalie reached for the door, but just as she was about to slip away, one of the men turned, catching a glimpse of her shadow.
Who's there?
He demanded, his tone sharp and accusatory. Natalie froze, her heart racing. She had been discovered. She turned slowly to face the men, her mind racing for an explanation or an escape. The two men exchanged a look, a mix of surprise and calculation.
Oh, it seems we have an uninvited guest.
Before Natalie could react, a clown with red hair, red jacket and boots reached out with a sudden, swift motion. His fingers brushed against Natalie's cheek, his touch cold and electrifying. She felt a sharp, searing pain as his fangs punctured her skin, a sensation both agonizing and strangely intoxicating. Her vision blurred as a wave of darkness overwhelmed her senses, and she slowly collapsed.
Come one, come all to the edge of the night, where the crimson tent glows under pale moonlight. A kiss, a scream, a shadow's delight. We dance where dreams and dread ignite. Step inside where the music sighs, painted smiles and hollow eyes. The fangs behind the friendly grin will drink your soul and draw you